In countless marriages around the world, a peculiar and often unspoken phenomenon occurs. As years pass, many women find themselves experiencing a gradual shift in how they feel about their husbands. What begins as love, admiration, and excitement slowly transforms into something more complicated, sometimes indifference, frustration, or even resentment. This isn't the story of every marriage, but it's common enough to warrant serious attention. This growing distance doesn't happen overnight. It develops slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. A woman might catch herself sighing more often when her husband speaks. She might feel less inclined to share the details of her day. The physical touch that once felt electric now feels obligatory. The question that surfaces, often during quiet moments of reflection, is simple yet profound. What happened to us? Society often dismisses these feelings as inevitable, the natural cooling of passion, the unavoidable fading of romance after years together. But this explanation feels incomplete and somewhat dismissive. It suggests that discontentment in marriage is simply the cost of time passing rather than something that could be understood and addressed. The truth behind this emotional drift is more nuanced and surprisingly quite practical. It's not rooted primarily in falling out of love or the mystical disappearance of chemistry. Instead, it's connected to tangible day-to-day realities that accumulate over time. These practical factors create emotional consequences that, when left unaddressed, can create a chasm between partners who once felt inseparable. What's particularly interesting is how this phenomenon transcends cultures, socioeconomic backgrounds, and generations. While the specifics may vary, the pattern remains remarkably consistent. Women who once looked at their husbands with adoration, gradually finding themselves wondering how they've ended up feeling so disconnected. This isn't about assigning blame. Both partners contribute to the dynamics of a relationship, often unconsciously. And understanding the practical reasons behind this emotional shift isn't about pointing fingers. It's about identifying patterns that can be recognized and changed. Because when we understand the practical foundations of emotional distance, we gain the power to bridge that gap. When relationships begin, priorities often center around discovery, connection, and building a life together. There's an intoxicating focus on shared experiences, traveling together, meeting each other's friends, staying up late discussing dreams and ambitions. In those early days, qualities like spontaneity, passion, and attentiveness rank high on the list of what matters in a partner. As years pass, however, what women value in a relationship undergoes a significant evolution. The priorities shift from the excitement of new experiences to the reliability of consistent support. The definition of what constitutes a good husband transforms. While humor, charm, and romantic gestures might have topped the list early on, different qualities take precedence as life grows more complex. Emotional intelligence, equal partnership in household management, financial responsibility, and active engagement in family life. This shift creates a natural tension point. Many women find themselves evaluating their husbands against a new set of criteria that weren't necessarily discussed when they first committed to each other. A man who was once considered an ideal partner because of his adventurous spirit might now be viewed differently when he shows reluctance to take on his share of family responsibilities. What complicates this further is that these evolving priorities aren't always explicitly communicated. Women themselves might not fully recognize how their needs have changed until they experience the frustration of those needs going unmet. Meanwhile, many men continue operating under the assumption that what made them a good partner at the beginning of the relationship should still apply. The most significant disconnect often happens when one partner evolves considerably while the other remains relatively unchanged. While women frequently invest in personal growth through reading, therapy, or deep conversations with friends about relationship dynamics, men may not engage in similar processes at the same rate. This creates not just different priorities, but different emotional languages and expectations. The most successful couples navigate this transition by growing together rather than apart. They recognize that what constituted a fulfilling relationship in their 20s or 30s will not necessarily sustain them in their 40s and beyond. They understand that the passage of time in a marriage introduces a subtle yet powerful dynamic that many women experience but struggle to articulate: the accumulation of mental load. This invisible burden includes remembering birthdays, scheduling doctor's appointments, planning meals, monitoring household supplies, organizing social calendars, and the countless other administrative tasks that keep a household functioning. While seemingly minor in isolation, collectively these responsibilities create a constant background process running in many women's minds. What makes this burden particularly significant is its invisibility. Unlike physical housework, which can be observed and acknowledged, mental labor leaves no external evidence. There's no trophy for remembering that the children need new shoes or that the in-laws' anniversary is approaching. This work happens silently inside the mind, consuming emotional energy without recognition. Over years, an uneven distribution of this mental load creates a profound imbalance. When one partner consistently functions as the household's operating system, while the other acts more as a user who needs prompting and reminders, resentment naturally develops. The dynamic shifts from partnership to management, with women often feeling more like administrators than lovers or companions. Alongside mental load comes the weight of routine itself. The predictability that once felt like security gradually transforms into stagnation. The same conversations, the same weekend activities, the same patterns of intimacy. Repetition without refreshment slowly drains the vitality from the relationship. When spontaneity and curiosity disappear, relationships lose the oxygen they need to thrive. Many women find themselves trapped in a paradox. They're simultaneously overwhelmed by responsibilities, yet underwhelmed by the relationship itself. They crave both relief from the constant pressure of household management and injection of novelty into the partnership. When husbands fail to recognize either need, women experience a growing sense that their emotional and practical realities are invisible to their partners. This invisibility creates distance. When women feel unseen in their efforts and unheard in their requests for change, they begin to withdraw emotionally as a form of self-protection. The journey through midlife brings unique challenges to both men and women, but often in asymmetrical ways that create relationship friction. As couples move through their 40s and beyond, differing approaches to aging can drive a wedge between partners who once felt aligned in their life trajectories. Women frequently approach aging as a multifaceted process, requiring active management across physical, emotional, and intellectual dimensions. Many invest considerable energy in understanding hormonal changes, adjusting health routines, exploring evolving identities, and seeking communities that support holistic well-being. This proactive approach often involves significant research, medical consultations, lifestyle adjustments, and ongoing self-reflection. Conversely, many men approach aging with less deliberate attention. They may notice physical changes, but address them sporadically rather than systematically. Emotional and psychological dimensions of midlife may remain largely unexplored territory. While exceptions certainly exist, the pattern of women diving deeply into understanding their evolving selves while men maintain the status quo creates a developmental gap that widens with time. This divergence in health approaches and personal growth creates a fundamental asymmetry. A woman actively reimagining herself for the second half of life may find herself partnered with someone who appears unchanged in habits, perspectives, and interests from 20 years prior. What once felt like comfortable familiarity now registers as stagnation. The impact extends beyond philosophical concerns into daily compatibility. Different approaches to nutrition, exercise, sleep, social activities, and intellectual pursuits create practical conflicts. A wife exploring new wellness practices may grow frustrated with a husband who dismisses her evolving priorities or refuses to accommodate changing needs. Physical aging itself can become contentious when handled differently. Women often face more intense social scrutiny around aging and may resent partners who seem oblivious to both this pressure and their own health maintenance. The woman who schedules regular preventive care, monitors health metrics, and adjusts lifestyle accordingly may feel burdened when her husband ignores basic health. In the early stages of a relationship, conversation flows naturally. Couples spend hours sharing thoughts, dreams, and perspectives. They ask questions about each other's day with genuine curiosity. They debate ideas, laugh at shared jokes, and build a private language of references and meanings. This continuous exchange creates a foundation of emotional intimacy that makes partners feel deeply known and valued by each other. As years pass, the nature of communication often undergoes a gradual but significant transformation. The rich, exploratory conversations that once characterized the relationship slowly give way to functional exchanges, focused on logistics and household management. "How was your day?" becomes a perfunctory greeting rather than an invitation to genuine sharing. Discussions about schedules, children's activities, and financial matters dominate the conversational landscape. This shift happens so incrementally that many couples don't notice until the emotional connection has significantly eroded. By then, many women find themselves living with partners they can no longer reach emotionally. The pathways of meaningful communication have become overgrown with neglect, creating a sense of isolation even in physical proximity. The absence of deep conversation affects women particularly strongly. Research consistently shows that women often process experiences and emotions through verbalization. Talking things through isn't just communication, it's how many women make sense of their world. When husbands disengage from substantive conversation, it removes an essential tool for emotional processing and connection. The quality of listening also deteriorates over time. Initial attraction often involves feeling truly heard and understood. As years pass, partners frequently fall into patterns of half-listening, scanning for relevant information rather than seeking to understand the emotional nuances and underlying meanings. This shift from active, empathetic listening to functional information gathering leaves women feeling increasingly unheard and invalidated. Technology further complicates modern relationship communication. Devices create constant competition for attention, with partners often physically present but mentally elsewhere. The woman trying to share something meaningful, while relationships begin with expectations, some spoken, others unspoken. Women enter marriages with visions of partnership shaped by cultural narratives, family histories, and personal desires. These expectations aren't simply about grand romantic gestures. They encompass the countless small ways partners show up for each other daily. They're about mutual support, shared responsibility, emotional availability, and continuous growth together. Over time, the gap between these expectations and reality becomes increasingly apparent. What makes this particularly painful is that disappointment rarely arises from dramatic betrayals or catastrophic failures. Instead, it accumulates through small daily moments when needs go unnoticed, requests go unheeded, and emotional labor goes unacknowledged. The woman who has repeatedly asked for more help with household management finds herself still carrying most of the load years later. The wife who has expressed her need for emotional support continues to receive problem-solving when she shares vulnerabilities. The partner who has requested more physical affection outside of sexual contexts still finds touch limited to sexual initiation. Each instance seems minor in isolation, hardly worth a major confrontation, yet collectively they create a narrative of persistent disregard. This pattern creates what psychologists call learned helplessness, the gradual realization that no matter how clearly or frequently needs are expressed, the desired change will not materialize. Women often reach a point where they simply stop asking, not because the needs disappear, but because the act of asking and being disappointed has become its own form of emotional injury. Particularly damaging is the experience of having legitimate concerns dismissed as overreactions or nagging. When women's expectations are characterized as unreasonable rather than recognized as valid relationship needs, it creates a profound sense of gaslighting. Women begin to question not just the relationship, but their own perceptions and emotional responses. The disappointment extends beyond specific unmet needs to broader relationship trajectories. Many women enter marriage expecting continued growth, the development of deeper emotional intimacy, evolving shared interests, and mutual support for individual evolution. The journey from discontentment to renewed connection isn't linear. Even with the best intentions, Couples experience setbacks and revert to established patterns during times of stress. True transformation requires accepting this imperfect progress, while maintaining commitment to the larger goal of creating a relationship where both partners feel valued, supported, and understood. Sustainable change emerges when couples recognize that marriage must be actively co-created rather than passively experienced. This means regular conversations about how the relationship is functioning, what each partner needs, and how they can better support each other. These discussions aren't signs of a troubled relationship, but rather evidence of an evolving partnership that prioritizes mutual growth and satisfaction. Particular attention must be paid to life transitions, which often trigger relationship deterioration when not consciously navigated. Career changes, health challenges, children's developmental stages, and aging parents create stress that can either drive partners apart or bring them closer, depending on how these transitions are handled. Couples who proactively discuss how to manage these changes as a team maintain stronger connections than those who face them as individuals sharing a household. The distribution of power within the relationship requires ongoing calibration. Many marriages suffer when decision-making becomes imbalanced over time. Women who feel their preferences, opinions, and needs carry less weight than their husbands inevitably withdraw emotionally. Conscious efforts to ensure both voices matter equally in everything, from daily choices to major life decisions, create a foundation of respect essential to lasting partnership. Finding sources of shared meaning represents another crucial element in relationship revitalization. Couples who develop common interests, goals, or values create bridges between their individual experiences. Whether through shared creative pursuits, volunteer work, spiritual practices, or intellectual exploration, these connections provide relationship oxygen that prevents stagnation. Perhaps most importantly, couples must nurture curiosity about each other that counteracts the dangerous assumption of complete knowledge. The belief that we fully understand our partner leads to projections rather than true seeing.